Hey, what's up, guys? This is a DeFi enthusiast here. Welcome to the channel, and I am so honored once again to have my dear friend Kenzo Trading from, the token that I was talking about in my Patreon and the one I was kind of promoting on my Twitter. I wasn't telling you guys what it is, but finally I was like, I gave you guys a bunch of hints. You guys can, because I said I interviewed this person before, and you guys could check it out. You guys could go through my videos, but if you haven't, if you've been living under a rock, we're back here with Kenzo Trading from Morphware. How are you, buddy? Congratulations on the fair launch of the project. It's a really, really exciting time. Would love to hear what you've been up to, man.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, first of all, great to sync again. I think you've seen the project in all of its different phases, the ups and the downs. And yeah, we were just heads down biddling for a while, so weren't many updates. But yeah, now with the launch and everything, I think the launch went super well. I think everyone agrees about that. We did that with zero paid marketing. So that's pretty cool. Everyone and their mother was telling me, dude, you got to get all these different people on board, blah, 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 blah. And, every project kind of chooses its own path. But for us, I mean, we've been working on Morpher for 3 years. So I think, when it comes to tokenomics, when you really reflect on it, it's all about longevity and staying power, right? Because a lot of these projects that cut deals very early on, say like they give a lot of tokens to KOLs out the gate, or they bundle or snipe the supply, or all these different things. It kind of comes back to bite them in the butt a little bit, because what happens is um, these projects have to generate revenues by selling tokens to the community, and it's usually done in an opaque way. So the thing about what we're doing, which is really cool, is, well, first of all, we've always focused on the unit economics of the business. We've always thought critically about what the project was from just taking a step back and really thinking from kind of a grand strategy perspective. What exactly is it that we're doing here? And then two, what's the market opportunity, right? So by that I mean, um, when you think about what's going on in the AI space with all the craze of everything going on, everything pretty soon is going to become about the price of electricity. So to answer that question about what exactly are we doing, we're really taking electricity and we're trying to turn it into money. And the way that we're trying to do that is basically by running AI workloads, right? Because when you think about basically what's going on in this space, there's kind of a stack-based architecture. What I mean by that is, at the top level, you have software. In the middle, you have hardware. And in the very bottom, you have, let's just call it core infrastructure. Or I'm just going to call it electricity, just to keep things really kind of like straightforward. So what's interesting here is there's commodification going on at two levels, and the third is already commodified. So what I mean by that is this. At the software level, open source models are converging in performance with closed source models. What I mean by that is basically, if you were to basically plot these out on a curve, or two separate curves rather, what's interesting here is that closed source models are kind of logarithmic, and open source models are increasing in performance on a geometric rate, right? So basically, what's really interesting here about that convergence is what it implies is that open source models, and I'm talking about large language models like the ones behind ChatGPT and other services people on the call are familiar with. Basically, what's interesting here is open source models are just as good basically now as the closed source ones, assuming you have the hardware. And that goes to the next level of the stack, right? So software up here, hardware here, at the bottom you have core infrastructure, electricity. So basically, drilling down on hardware, this part's very simple. Anyone can go out and buy an NVIDIA card if you have the money on the primary market or the secondary market. By that, I mean from a reseller or directly from NVIDIA, right? So if that's commodification at the software level, at the top level, right, that means basically like open source models are converging in performance with closed source models. And then basically what you have is hardware that's being somewhat commodified. And by that, I mean anyone can go out and buy an NVIDIA GPU. Everything soon is going to be about the price of electricity, right? Because basically what's going to happen is basically some sort of price collapse phenomenon where basically no products are differentiated from one another, right? Because they're all kind of like similar in performance. And people are just going to look for like the lowest cost alternative. And here's what's really interesting about the project, and coming back to why we chose Paraguay. Paraguay has an abundance of electricity. And what I mean by that is a long time ago, you can look into the history yourself here if anyone's watching this. They built a really big dam. I think it's still like the third largest or second largest in the world. They built a huge dam with Brazil, and they decided to split the electrical proceeds from it. What's interesting is that Paraguay has a far less electrical load, a much lower electrical load than Brazil. So what I mean by that is Brazil has 220 million people, I think, and Paraguay has 6 million, right? So the point I'm getting at is the 6 million people don't use as much electricity as the 220 million. So it happens periodically on basically a multi-year kind of interval or cadence. Paraguay auctions the electricity back to Brazil, right? The thing about power contracts and building infrastructure is it takes years. People are always like, oh yeah, you guys started in 2021. What have you been doing since then? And I'm like, dude, we've been like sourcing electricity and like working on core infrastructure stuff. And none of this stuff is stuff you can do in a short amount of time, right? So one, that's a bit of a competitive moat. But two, here's the interesting thing about this stack, about software, hardware, and electricity or core infrastructure. Basically, the thing is 65 to 90% of the OpEx, basically the ongoing expenditures, or what people call the operational expenditures of a high performance computing enterprise, say like cryptocurrency mining or running AI workloads, 65 to 90% of the OpEx is directly related to the price of electricity, right? So that's pretty nuts, because what that means in a high performance computing business is if you can basically get your OpEx under control, right? What that means is that you have a real competitive advantage to go ahead and undercut your competitors on price. Now, the question is, would people switch to Morphware, right? The question becomes, would AI practitioners switch to Morphware away from big tech, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Azure, et cetera? Would they switch from these products that they know and love to Morphware, a product that they've basically never heard of, just to be completely honest, right? The reason that they might is because, really interesting survey from Intel recently, Intel, the chip giant, 56% of AI practitioners recently said in a big survey that cost was their number one challenge to implementing AI solutions, right? So that's over half the surveyed market is price sensitive, right? And not just that, they're extremely price sensitive because cost is their number one concern. It's not model performance or some other thing. It's all about the money. It's all about cost, right? And if you can drive the cost down and pass those savings on to your consumers, then you're cooking with gas, right? So here's what's really cool about what we're doing. One, and just as a side note, what's really cool, I know a lot of people in Web3 don't care about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. What's really cool about basically what we're doing is our electricity is affordable and we pass those savings on to our consumers. And here's the kicker, it's all renewably generated, right? It's all hydro. That's super cool, right? Web3 may not care a lot about it, the renewable aspect, but Silicon Valley and the AI practitioners, our users, definitely do, right? So that's what's going on there. Two, just coming back to like core competitive advantage stuff, It would take, I think, years for people like other projects to go ahead and catch up with us. But basically, let's say you want to go to some country, get electricity from some hydro or solar resource, or even like a natural gas resource or something like that. I think it would take you a very long time to scale. You can obviously do things at below 3 megawatts. It's pretty easy to get going. Above that, it's pretty hard to ramp up. Just on the logistics of negotiating what are called power purchase agreements, right? Because electricity is actually, the power market is pretty cavernous, and it's pretty hard to navigate. I mean, we learned that in the past 3 years. I mean, it's just like, it is wild, like what you'll learn about the power markets. And what I mean by that is, it's just very, very complex. It's very complex. It's hard to navigate, and it's a poorly documented process, right? So you need professionals to negotiate things usually on your behalf. Sourcing is a whole nother, sourcing and site selection is a whole nother set of sub processes that tech companies usually aren't necessarily good at, right? Usually data center operation is completely segregated from the application and database levels, right? With regards to like stack-based infrastructure. But what's really cool about what Morphware is doing is we're scaling right now and so we're in the process of doing this. We don't have a substation yet, but our vision is to scale from the substation up, to vertically integrate from the substation up, right? That's like basically the vision, or the transformer up, you could say, right? What's really cool about that is there's a lot of startups right now in the Web3 space. Obviously not going to name any of them, but the point is a lot of startups basically go ahead and they're like, you know what, we are a competitor in the AI space, and we're going to compete on innovation, right? And that is probably one of the dumbest strategic moves you could try to do, because OpenAI, Facebook, and Google Brain have people that are more innovative than your startup, right? It's just a fact. You're not gonna Google. It was like in the Wall Street Journal the other day. Google just bought Character AI. It was like this guy that left Google to go start Character AI. They bought it back as an acqui-hire for $2.7 billion just to get the guy back. You know what I mean? People at OpenAI are being paid buku bucks. And I'm not saying, I mean, we just got a guy who's a contractor for OpenAI to come work for Morphware. That's pretty cool recruit. But the point I'm getting at here is that per capita, or like basically like individual contributor for individual contributor, generally, if you're going up against like the really big dogs that are training the foundation models, there's no way you're going to outstrip them on innovation, right? What you need to do, in my opinion, and this is what Morphware is doing, and it's very hard to do because we have a multi-year head start on this, is you need to provide a comparable product at a lower price, right? Because like, you know, with service businesses, now apparently there's 7Ps, but everyone that's taken like a business class in college knows that like there's generally or historically 4Ps in marketing, right? Now there's like apparently 7 with the service businesses, which is drilling down to the classic 4, right? There's product, price, place, promotion, right? We're not going to out promote Google, right? Google Cloud. I mean, they give away like $100,000 compute credits like nothing, right? So that's promotion. Product, you're not going to make a better foundation model than the guys who have literally tens of thousands of NVIDIA H100 cards. Just not going to happen, right? And then when you think about placement, I mean, yeah, you're not going to outplace anyone either. I mean, if you're on Google.com and you're using Google Drive or Google Apps for work, opening up Google is like one extra little box there. You know what I mean? Or Amazon. It's like placement is like, if you're an enterprise, you know, all your data is stored in S3, right? Are you going to really like think about like, oh, I'm going to move to the startup that says like they have a better model than one of the big dogs, right? It's just like ridiculous, just completely farcical. The only P that you can compete on as a startup is price. But that's very hard, right? Because you need to build core infrastructure. You need to basically have a bunch of different deals in place, not just on primary markets, but on secondary markets, which are really complex, right? Um, yeah, and that's kind of our edge. We want to be much more like Toyota in the 80s than Ferrari, because a lot of startups, in order to raise revenues, they basically make a lot of promises that they have no intention of ever on delivering on. They're like, we're going to out innovate. We're going to be sexier than OpenAI, right? We're going to be even better than Ferrari. With our new supercar company. And the problem is, it's not about, Elon Musk said this, like, it's not about building the car. It's about building the machine that builds the machine, right? You have to have a set of processes in place to be able, when you're running a business, to go ahead and consistently deliver a predictable level of performance in a product, right? So what I mean by that is basically, like, it's one thing to make one car in like an engineering grad class or something, right? It's another thing to create like a car factory, and to deal with the labor negotiations, and to market the car, and to just finance the entire operation. You know, battery technology. It's like there's all sorts of complicated things that are related to scale and not innovation. What we do at Morphware is we want to be much more like Toyota in the 80s. What I mean by that is this. Basically, we want to offer a comparable level of performance in a approachable form factor. So what I mean by that is, when we tell people about our product, we go, hey, shamelessly, hey, it's just like ChatGPT at the chat level and the API level, right? The models are just as performant, right? And that's going to be the case when we get the next class of GPUs online. The point is, we go, hey, when they ask, what is the product? Oh, it's just like ChatGPT, but it's cheaper. For a lot of people, that doesn't mean anything, but to a small group of power users who are extremely price sensitive and make thousands of API calls an hour, because they might be running some startup at the application level that's like, hey, communicate with your favorite chatbot, right? Or like something like that. We provide the backend infrastructure for people to be able to make those API calls. And the idea here, our hunch, is that if you make something as good as someone else, but you make it cheaper, you'll capture part of the market. And from there, you can fuel your innovation, because you're basically building up a small stockpile of resources and the operational expertise to run an enterprise at scale, right? To go ahead and basically grow in a sustainable fashion. So we're not only focused on sustainability from a renewability perspective, right? We're focused on sustainable growth, right? In the sense that we paid 0 KOLs, zero, basically, like, we didn't do any press releases, anything like that. All we've done is basically gone ahead and focus on word of mouth, right? Because the thing in the crypto space that you'll find, I think, is this. What happens generally is, well, yeah, I mean, there's already a phrase for this, it's all just pump and dump, right? People run up the price of something in an unsustainable way. Market cap gets completely out of sync with the liquidity pool, right? And then the token price crashes back down to earth. And then the problem is, and then here's the problem, by then, all those marketing goodies, all those like tokens that have been like secretly circulated amongst like a group of insiders are all gone now, right? Liquidity pool is out of sync with the market cap, right? When it's starting to peak, right? Or crescendo. Then what happens is, basically, it's kind of like a plane losing lift. It's very scary. Like, you know, if a plane stalls out, it's basically what happens, for people that don't know. But the physics of it is, you know, very simply, like, you know, you're losing thrust, right? Or actually, you're not losing thrust, but you're basically losing momentum, right? It's like da, 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 da. And then, like, what happens when you stall out in a plane can be very scary, and it's very hard to recover, because it's like, right? So the point I'm getting at basically here is, we have focused very intentionally on building up the LP and the Treasury via attacks. Now, taxes are kind of interesting because I think, first of all, the thing about the tax is it's not going to be in place forever. But the reality is, as a project, if we're going to go ahead and vertically integrate from the substation up and really compete on price, it's going to take some money, right? So what I mean by that is basically we have to make initial cash outlays. We have to go ahead and buy transformers. We have to go ahead and pay people to pour construction, pour concrete from construction companies, right? We have to build a wall around the perimeter. We have to, right? So we've already got a location now, but we want to have more than one location, right? Basically, not just containers, but also just like actual physical structures, like sprung structures, right? That are like very easy and fast to build. But all that stuff takes money. And that's just kind of like the actual infrastructure layer. I'm not even talking about equipment, right? Bitcoin miner costs like $4,000 or $5,000, like an S21 Hydro, if you can get it. NVIDIA H200 card costs, it's costing us like, I think it's costing us like 32,000 Great British pounds, including that. So that's one GPU. It's pretty expensive. And one of those servers from NVIDIA that has 8 of them in it, including the server, costs like $545,000 or something like that. It's like $500,000, right? Just for one server. So the point is we need money to go ahead and buy all this stuff. And we need to pay core contributors to the project because we've got a bunch of hardcore people on the team, guys with PhDs in AI, Web3 veterans, marketing folks, right? All these people need to be paid, right? So they can focus on the project, and so the project doesn't have to dump the token. So what we do and what we've gone ahead and done is, first of all, locked up a bunch of the supply. All the treasury from the team side is locked up, right? So I think 41.83 repeating is now locked up on across Unicrypt and Floki. 2, though, I think what's really cool is, with the other 50% of the supply, we just like literally fair launched that thing. People thought we were insane. People were like, what are you doing? Like, you've been working on this thing for 3 years. You're just going to throw it all away? But I thought, like, my old boss used to say this. He was like, people are smart, right? And if they see something and they look into the team and they're like, wait a minute, like this Telegram's been open for like 3 years. Like these guys have actually been doing this thing, albeit we didn't have much buzz. I mean, now there's like over 1,000 hodlers of Morphware token, and we haven't even started really marketing this thing yet.
Myself included.
Yeah, exactly, right. So exactly. So I think the thing here is, we're really focused on growing sustainably, and we're really serious about making this a long-term thing. I mean, when people ask me, I see myself working on Morphware in 10 years easily. I mean, there's no reason we can't grow this thing to its max potential and to climb the power grid in terms of net usage of the grids of megawatts.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think you guys also, it's interesting though, because in my last interview that we did, I was actually discussing with you about the fair launch scenario, if you remember.
Oh, no, I don't.
Oh yeah. We had a pretty long discussion about fair launches, but you gave me a very different perspective on fair launches, that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, like it really depends. But the fact that you guys took that step, I think in my view, that was a pretty gutsy move, I would say, because
a lot of people,
you guys have been building this whole thing with a real infrastructure. I mean, there's a real product behind this. It's not just, like a lot of other cryptos. I'm not really going to take any names, but most of them don't really have a product, right? It's all just in the air. It's all conceptual, but there's no real thing that really exists, right? And that's really where the speculation aspect comes in with cryptocurrencies, and that's why a lot of people that are not on the inside, they're kind of skeptical about investing in this. But as I've always believed, that if you invest in real utility-based projects, that's really where the winners are. And those are the ones. I mean, you can take your profits and get out, but the good thing about projects like Morphware is that even if somebody gets out, they can get back in knowing that this thing is still here. It's not going anywhere else. It's like they're not like disappearing. It's not going away. It's not fading away, because you guys have invested so much time, research, and money into this. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And here's the really, yeah, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, and what I was really going to ask you, the next thing is that, like, I know you guys you have a partnership with Harmony One, right? That's been, I think that's been cemented for a while now. Are you planning to have more partnerships in the near future? And if there are already some partnerships that you would want to talk about as well?
It's a great question. I think the most interesting partnership we have right now is with Kakarot, ZKEVM. So today's the last day of Starknet BiddleCamp. And basically, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and a lot of people watching are not going to agree with me, but I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say this all anyway because it's what I believe. I think the L1 battle is over. All right, so this is all going to be extremely controversial, and it's probably going to trigger some people. But the way that I see things is cryptos, and I've been in the space for a long time. My friend and I, we were mining ETH and Litecoin back in 2015. When I think about the space, I think about it this way. I think there's digital gold in one vertical, in one silo, and that's Bitcoin. I think and Bitcoin dominates that, right? Just from a market share perspective, right? Then there's basically the world computer vertical, which ETH really dominates, if you really think about it from a market cap perspective as well. And then there's arguably all this other stuff, okay? So, and I'm not going to go into the other stuff. I'm just going to focus on world computer, okay? So even though Bitcoin has a fourth like scripting language called Script, right? The thing is, and this may trigger some of the Bitcoin people, and I'm a big fan of Bitcoin myself, but the point I'm getting at is the smart contract level on Bitcoin, little hard to go ahead and use efficiently. Obviously, there's a lot of innovation occurring there now. I think it's really cool. Starknet's even doing a lot of really cool stuff there. But just kind of traditionally speaking, let's just say to like someone who was like, I kind of still have my 2015 hat on. Bitcoin traditionally has been hard to introduce programmable logic to, right? At a significant capacity, right? I mean, it's just been always like very hard with regards to block space and stuff. Here's the interesting thing about Ethereum, though, just real quick. This, it's really funny. The director of strategy at one of the big L2s, actually, I think they might be, actually, no, at one of the big alternative L1s told me this. At ETH Dubai in 2022, he said something really interesting, and if he's watching this, he'll know what I'm talking about. He said this is before ETH moved to proof of stake, and what he said was once ETH moves to proof of stake, all these other chains are going to basically have an existential crisis. Right? Because right now they're like, we're faster than Ethereum, or we have a higher TPS than Ethereum, or we have lower fees, Somehow they were all like, we're the Ethereum killer, right? Turned out no one killed Ethereum, right? And all those people are really struggling, right? Some are like, we're AI projects now. Others are like, we're doing ZK stuff now, right? It's like, and it's all like, and I'm not trying to shit on any of them, but the point I'm getting at is, that was always a ticking time bomb in my mind, right? When you really think about like the actual core blockchain technology, right? And I'm not trying to dunk on any of those projects. I think they're great. I think their communities especially are great. But the point I'm getting at here is all these projects a long time ago said we're going to be the Ethereum killer, right? In the sense that like there's not going to be Ethereum anymore. We will be the dominant. We will be 25% of crypto, like in terms of market share, right? And none of that ever happened, right? So what I think is going to happen is because Ethereum has a great track record I've read Geth myself, like Go Ethereum, the client, the official client for the Ethereum project. I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Like the way Geth works, obviously, is there overhead? Sure. Could there be further optimizations? Of course, with anything, right? But the point I'm getting at here is this. I think Starknet is the future of scaling Ethereum. So basically, at Ethereum, I don't really think, and this is people are going to go, man, this guy's an idiot. If they hear this, like some sort of alt L1 or L2 maxi, they might be like, Kenzo's an idiot. But this is really what I believe. Just real quick. I think basically that there's no reason to replace Ethereum, right? And this is why. Basically, if Ethereum just keeps doing what it's doing, right, and just producing blocks, right? All Starknet does, which is really elegant, albeit right now it's centralized, but I think they have plans obviously to decentralize all this stuff. Everything initially like starts centralized, like Bitcoin does a Genesis block. In ZK projects, there's ceremonies in some of them, right? Which is like a trusted setup process. The point here is this. I think Starknet is the future of scaling Ethereum basically because it elegantly sequences the blocks, right? And that's so if there's Ethereum down here, which is the actual blockchain, or it's the actual kind of like core L1, there's basically an L2, which is Starknet. But the thing about Starknet is a ZK VM. It's not a ZK EVM. Long story short, that's because they had to write a provable programming language that's kind of Rust-like, but much more hardcore, for lack of a better phrase, this thing called Cairo, right? And basically, the interesting thing here is Starknet is a ZK VM. It's not a ZK EVM. So if you have smart contracts written in Solidity, there's not a compatibility layer in between basically your Solidity code that currently runs on Ethereum and basically Starknet, which is the block sequencer, right? Which is sequencing the transactions, right? And basically makes it so all these transactions basically get rolled up, for lack of a better phrase, and put into an Ethereum block, right? So so what's going on here is this. There's actually a layer 2.5 in their words and not mine. So Ethereum is the L1 again, just to paraphrase. Starknet is the L2, it's a ZK VM. And then there's on top of Starknet a ZK EVM. Now the reason that you know that this isn't like a goofy approach is because Vitalik seeded Kakarot. He seeded the layer 2.5, probably because a lot of Solidity devs need to go ahead and elegantly ship code in a very easy and approachable way, in a familiar way, to the ZK VM. But there's no interoperability layer in this stack, in the scaling stack, right? And that's why basically we are the official compute partner of Kakarot, right? I think basically what's really cool is that basically all this stuff is going to need a lot of compute, right? What I think personally is that what's going to happen is that we're going weirdly, just as an entire space, the Web3 space, we're coming full circle on proof of work, but in a new dress. So what I mean by that is we all started off with proof of work with Bitcoin, then came Ethereum. That was really cool. Then other mineable projects that had some sort of like privacy introduced, like Monero and other projects like that you could mine, right? Then everyone started moving to proof of stake. Then Ethereum kind of got bullied into doing proof of stake stuff. And then basically now though, we're back at the top of the circle. Now we're basically back up towards, hey, you might need a powerful computer to run some of these transactions, to process some of these transactions, right? And and it's really interesting. Back in the day, people were mining Bitcoin on their laptops, right? Way back in the day, like in 2011. The interesting thing here is a lot of the ZK stuff, say on Starknet, is basically is not efficiently parallelizable. That's like a word salad, or that's like a mouthful. But the point is, right now you can only use basically a CPU, I mean, efficiently with regards to like utilization, and an FPGA, basically programmable logic, to go ahead and accelerate some of these computations, because they're largely there's a strong dependency structure in the computation. So basically, parts of the computation are necessarily sequential. So what I mean by that is, basically, long story short, CPUs are excellent at sequential processes. GPUs are excellent at embarrassingly parallel programs. That's like a computer science phrase. For those of you watching that aren't familiar with it. General idea here is designing FPGA code is really hard, even if you write HLS compliant C code or HLS compatible C code. It's called high level synthesis C code, to go ahead and basically program a circuit so you can accelerate something in an elegant way. Yeah, long story short, I think that the future of scaling Ethereum is Starknet. And the partnership that I'm really excited about right now is ours with Kakarot. We've been talking to a lot of folks at Starknet. It would be great to go ahead and be part of their ecosystem as an official compute partner, basically at an ecosystem level in Starknet, not just Kakarot. Basically moving down the stack from layer 2.5 to 2. It's not something that is like make or break for the project at all. We're going to succeed regardless of whether or not we're partners with them. But I think that might be a partnership that I'm really excited about. A lot of core people, not just from their DevRel team and stuff from Starknet Camp. I just graduated from Basecamp, which is kind of like their starter program. And then Camp's kind of like built on top of that. And it's quite a selective process. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about all that stuff. And what else? I think, yeah, partnership wise. So that's all Web3 partnership stuff. Something we've been discussing here in Paraguay, and actually something I'm not going to be able to say on the call yet, because we've all kind of agreed communications wise to a particular editorial calendar. But we've basically been partnering with a lot of local folks here to go ahead and further our progress. So I think that's really exciting. It's taken years to get to this point, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, that's excellent. And obviously, yeah, that's what I keep I mentioned Morphware on my Patreon ages ago. I mean, even before, the coin came out, and, I gave an analysis, and I was like, I told the people who subscribed, I was like, you guys better, keep an eye on when this thing comes out, because, you can be making a lot of good money. I know. I mean, let's just admit it, man. I mean, most people in crypto, I mean, the ones that are not developing, right? The ones that are not devs, the ones that are not, building something, they're here to make money, right? Which is obviously natural. But this is what I keep. Even though we've seen some really good price appreciation in this, with the fair launch you guys did, and I'm really, really impressed with how things are going. I just feel it's only the beginning right now, because there is so much further growth that is going to be taking place. Because not only do you have partnerships in the Web3 space, you have also, outside of that Web3 world, you have real partnerships, which obviously you can't talk more with me about at the moment. But like you've mentioned, you have partnerships in Paraguay and things like that. I think that is super, super cool. And this is why, I feel that this is going to be one of the most successful projects, in crypto. I mean, seeing this from the ground up, seeing where you guys were, seeing where you guys are now, it is really, really amazing to see, a project that, like I've seen a lot of projects from the beginning. I mean, I've seen a bunch, and I've been a part of a few of them, and I've seen a lot of them fail. A lot of them have failed. They've gone down the drain. They've completely disappeared. I've lost a lot of money there as well, personally. But with Morphware, like to me, knowing the way you guys have been building, it doesn't surprise me how well the project is doing. It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I think it's really, really impressive, but it doesn't surprise me because of you're one of the most hardworking guys in the space, man. And you mentioned a point where you were saying that people might think that whatever your views are right now on layer ones could be ridiculous, but man, you have every right to have your own view. I mean, you've been in this space, you've been building, and you have a better understanding than 98% of the people that are in the space, man. So yeah, you have every right to say that. But with that in mind, though, one thing that is interesting, I mean, you mentioned Starknet, all these things in Ethereum. Do you feel that once this whole Starknet integration takes place further, Ethereum's price issues are going to be resolved? Because right now we still see those gas fees at around $9, $10, and this is even, we're not even like at the peak of the bull run at the moment. Like, where do you see? Because one of the things that every other layer one has is lower gas fees, right?
You're right. No, it's like, and the answer is that's a really good point. So first of all, so here's the thing. Those are my beliefs, right? So and the thing is, people can take them or leave them, right? But are there legitimate concerns about gas and finality, like speed to finality? Absolutely. Like, I was very impressed. Someone sent me some Solana the other day. Like, it was like a couple months ago now. It's like time's flying so fast. But they were loaning projects some Solana to go ahead, some Sol to go ahead and so we could go to Texas to consensys, right? One of Karam, one of the great community members of the project, which is awesome. I was really impressed. I was like, wow. I was like, oh man, Solana's like really got their act together. So that's like a good example. I mean, for a while, for years, we were using Polygon as a test network. At Matic, we were using the Mumbai test network because there was so much baloney going on with the Ethereum testnets. Just like, I mean, we went from like Guerli to Sepolia, or like back in between them. But before we were on Rinkeby and something. I can't even remember all the names of the testnets. But like, the point is, it's just like, I mean, just the process of getting testnet ETH is like really hard now. You have to like go to a faucet and they're like, oh yeah, like sign up and like give us all your data and like we'll give you like 0.1 testnet ETH. And you're like, what the fuck? There was even a point in the project where we were thinking about like mining testnet ETH basically and then selling it. So Polygon and Solana, I've had great experiences. The guys from Near are super duper cool, right? Who else? Anyway, like, long story short, like, I'm not trying to dunk on any projects. I'm just saying, I mean, I'm a guy who grew up on Ethereum. That's like those are my people, right? So I'm always going to be biased towards them a little bit. Have I had great experiences on other blockchains? Absolutely. Polygon, Solana. I'm struggling to remember a couple others. And then Harmony, yeah, Harmony, they gave us that look early on. It's a shame what happened to the bridge. We were very bullish on Harmony. Not that we're not anymore. I think Steven and Lee are really, really, really smart guys, and they're really good guys. They took us out to dinner a long time ago. We explained the vision, and they bought a lot of the token. I mean, they bought like 2 million Morphware tokens at the time, which is a lot. And they believed in the project before anyone else. So they were just as visionary as you or me. So I mean, just with regards to like being hip to the project early on and understanding it. Let me think about what are the other ones that are really cool? I don't know. Well, let me ask you this. What do you think?
I mean, right now, what I'm really interested in is kaspa. Kaspa has been building for some time now as well. And yeah, and I mean, they're coming out with smart contracts now very soon. So
Kaspa's been on the radar for a while. I'm going to say something very unpopular. Actually, you know what I think is cool? I'm going to say something very, people are going to cringe at this one. Uh, I like Cardano. I still think Cardano's cool. I think the guys behind Cardano are really smart, and the whole like field theory thing is very interesting. And a lot of there was a point in my life where I went down the Haskell, the learn you a Haskell rabbit hole. If you're a programmer and you've read Learn You a Haskell, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, just like the whole category thing, theory thing. Um, when I man, I'm like 35 now, but when I got into Web3, I was like 20, yeah, it was like 10 years ago, like 25 or 26. Um, back then, the smartest guys were in the Cardano project, I think. And I think the guy Charles Hoskins. He's clearly a very
Awesome. Yeah.
charismatic guy. Um, I think they used to call it the Japanese Ethereum. It has a lot of traction in Japan. So I think Cardano is very cool. I was I remember in 2021 when Cardano stopped, and the Cardano people, if there's any on this call or on this watching this, they'll know what I'm talking about. But I was disappointed when they dropped support for the KEVM project. That was supposed to be their Kakarot. And I think they didn't focus enough on it. And I think that was a strategic misstep. I think now you can run contracts on Cardano very easily. But man, I think if they went forward with Cardano, if I think Cardano would have leapfrogged Ethereum if they went through with KEVM in December. It was like December 2021 or something. I still remember reading the post. It was like a dev update. It's a mailing list or something. And I remember going, I was like, what? And maybe it was an engineering thing. I mean, I have no idea, but I was just like, what the fuck? Like, because it was some sort of thing where it was like, it was supposed to be running on a test net and they did it, but anyway, I think that was that, but I'm still a fan of Cardano, believe it or not. So people, a lot of people, they're like, oh my God, a Cardano guy. I'm a big fan. Other chains, but yeah, I would say most of all, I would say also, yeah, I'm very impressed with Solana. It actually is really fast. I mean, I was like pretty like, wow, I was like, I mean, they sent me the boom, and it was like it cost nothing. Oh, yeah, one last chain. I would say BNB is interesting too, you know, or now it's BSC. I think they kind of migrated but back when I was tracking it, this was like 2022 when we were talking to Binance Labs, which we didn't get into, unfortunately. They were migrating, like they were doing the whole BSC BNB thing where it was two separate chains, then it was too confusing for everyone, and then they basically went the Avalanche route, and introduced subnets. I think that one's very cool. I also thought Zcash was cool. I met a guy who worked on, she's a PhD in field theory, and he was like, he explained Zcash to me once. We went to lunch, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, it's Zcash, man." I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I'm also
Anyway,
liking Zephyr Protocol and Zano. I think, speaking of Zcash, they're doing, Zano is building a whole privacy blockchain. Zeph is, building a decentralized stable coin, and all that's pretty interesting. But without all the Luna, without all the disadvantages of Luna, that's basically their goal. So I mean, conceptually, it's really cool. They had a huge price bump. I remember like before Gary Gensler, remember that tweet that Gary did? Yeah, we didn't announce the ETFs, and everybody started to FUD, get scared, and the market dumped hard. You remember that point? At that point, Zeph was doing very well, everything was going up, and then Gary does that pathetic tweet, and then after a few hours he releases the ETFs. But yeah, so right now, I mean, Zeph is really down, but yeah, conceptually I really like what they were doing. They're still building, but as with this space, people, they think that just because a price of something has gone down, the project is dead, and I don't see it like that. I mean, as long as the devs are developing, they're building something, everything can be recoverable. The alarming point is if the devs stop developing, they stop doing things. Yeah, that's when it's like, yeah, now things are dead. So
Yeah, yeah.
and coming back to Morphware, do you see yourself partnering with some of these newer chains, like maybe even Solana? Like you said, you're really impressed with Solana, or I would say even Kaspa. I mean, considering they're coming out with a whole ecosystem now as well, and there's going to be a lot of hype around that. I mean, already been gaining traction in terms of price action and stuff.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, I think these could be real. We could be a compute partner to these chains. So in Solana, I think, and this may not still be true, but what I heard a long time ago was you needed 128 gigs of RAM to go ahead and run those nodes. That for us isn't a lot. Like our servers I mean, we're ordering NVIDIA H200 cards. I mean, those are like, obviously that's VRAM and not RAM. But the point is, I mean, the actual nodes that we're bringing online are quite impressive in terms of compute capacity. Happy to go ahead and explore conversations with people as a compute partner. I think as the reason I'm so willing to kind of not like be an ETH maxi, but to go ahead and kind of just prognosticate about how I see the space developing is like everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's like, you'll talk to a guy and he'll be like, oh, like my buddy, he's a Thorchain maxi. He loves Thorchain. He like writes computer programs like bots on Twitter that like report the Thorchain price on his Twitter thing. It's called like, I forget what his thing's called, but he's like a big Thorchain guy. And I'm saying, I think I think the whole, in the bear market or in the bear markets, everyone's always like, my thing's better than your thing. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I think that in the bull market, or especially right now, it's like we're all in the same boat together, whether we like it or not. As like a Web3 community, like it's very sink or swim, right? So what I mean by that basically is we're all gonna either win together or lose together, right? It's not. I don't think it's kind of like. I think it's about growing the pie basically, instead of making sure that your slice is a little bit bigger than someone else's slice, or kind of being worried about what's on someone else's plate, like that crabs in a barrel mentality. Um, and I think that basically, long story short, I think people can kind of like strike a balance in between their core convictions about what they think the future's like and what the supporting technology will be in the future and what its role will play, and basically their ability to be sociable, frankly. I mean, if people want to go ahead and be like, no, I think Solana is going to flip Ethereum or something, I think great. I'm not like upset about that, and I mean, some people do get upset about stuff like that and vice versa, if they're like, but I think most of the people in the space are pretty level-headed, and yeah, we'd be happy to go ahead and explore partnerships with those folks.
Absolutely. I mean, if I talk about myself, I personally didn't think, like after Solana had a couple of breakdowns in the network, I actually didn't think that they would even survive. I know it sounds crazy right now when you think about it. So I was proven wrong, and I was glad I was proven wrong. It wasn't that I was against Solana. I liked the project. I liked what they were doing, but they had these certain issues with their blockchain. And but they're still here. They're still very popular, and they're still doing very well. And I think people need to remove themselves from the point of something is going to flip something. I think flipping Ethereum, I doubt it, because the way I see it is Bitcoin is gold, Ethereum is silver, right? Ethereum is a silver of Web3, of blockchain technology, the way I see it. So it's rather, how can all these projects work in coexistence to make a better ecosystem, to make it a better environment for cryptocurrencies? Because at the end of the day, everybody wants one thing, right? And that is mass adoption, right? So at least that's the way I see it. And I've taken a lot of your time, man, but I've got two more questions for you.
Sure.
Two more main questions that are in my mind, because obviously I want Morphware to do well, so my first question is, I remember you guys were, maybe I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, you guys were planning to start a staking program for your tokens. Is that still something that is going to happen, or not? Number one. And number two, are there any tier one exchange listings coming up? If you can talk about them or not, I don't know.
Depends on who you say. Okay, so starting backwards. Actually, no, I'll take from the top. Staking. We had a staking program that was very successful. A lot of people's bags grew an ungodly amount during that time. You know what I mean? If you think about it, like the seed and all that stuff, they were treated very well. But that's because they believed in us when no one else did, right? And back then we did everything organic too. We were so crazy. We were like, all these launch pads were trying to dick us around. And we were like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and create our own website called launchpad.morphware.org, which isn't up anymore. But we were like, we're going to sell the token on there. And people were like, are you crazy? Like, they were like, what? And we sold $250,000 worth of the token. And it was like not a ton of the supply, right? And then we had that staking program. It was like a big success, staking.morphware.org or whatever it was. We opened up our own staking pool, have a stake. People can go on chain and look at the smart contracts, right? What I've heard from advisors in this stage right now is that if we went ahead and started talking about staking, it would signal, at least to like the Web3 veterans, that we're not confident about our growth prospects. Because instead of trying to increase demand, we would be trying to constrain supply, just from a very kind of econ 101 perspective, right? So for us, right now, we don't have a staking protocol in place. So what I mean by that is we don't have any foreseeable plan synergies staking. I feel like what we have coming is just so absolutely out of this world from an announcement and product perspective that we can kind of stand on our own 2 feet by basically like going ahead and driving demand instead of constraining supply, right? So second thing about like the exchange listings, man, that's a funny one. Everyone and their mom's reaching out right now. It's wild. It's like, it's exactly what I said it was going to be like though. And I knew it was going to be this way, just kind of going back to the launch, because I knew that the fair launch was like a good route, even though everyone was like, no, you got to do like the launch pads and then the LBP and then the exchanges. And if you don't do that, your project's completely fucked. And right. And I was just like, no, guys, this is what's going to happen, right? It was very clear this was going to happen too. As soon as the US adjusted its labor report, like up to that for the year to date, basically by 818,000 jobs, right? I was like, okay, that's a big adjustment, right? For any person with like a data science background or like any level of statistics training, they're going to go that's a big number, right? Then basically what was very clear was what the roadmap was going to be like, right? Coming back to like basically how things I thought would play out, and they did. I was like, all right, the labor report's going to be fucked up. Then basically the numbers are going to come out in inflation, the CPI print, and then basically what's going to happen is the rate cut. Everyone and their mom back in the day, I'm talking about months before the rate cut, was saying no, 50 basis points completely off the table. And if there is a 50 basis point cut, it's going to fuck up the crypto market and it's going to fuck up long duration assets like tech stocks. And I was like, no, because a big rate cut means like cheap money. And for some people, yeah, it's risk off. But for some people, they're like, wait, this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the next cheap money cycle, right? Because Bitcoin, technically, if you think about Bitcoin, just in its entire history, and there's even in the Genesis block of Bitcoin, there's something about this like headline from like the Times UK. Here's what's really interesting. Bitcoin has always existed in a low interest rate environment, aside from like the past 4 years. It's really kind of existed in kind of like a pretty low interest, a cheap money environment. It's always thrived in that, right? Obviously, there's been lulls. I've seen Bitcoin back in 2020. It was like May 2020. It was like $3,000 a Bitcoin or something. I mean, like we've seen some lows, we've seen some downswings.
2,700, if I remember correctly. Like at the very, yeah, I was there. That was, and everybody was panicking. I was like, I was chill. I was like, great. I mean, I was like, you know what? It's an opportunity. Buy it up, or buy your favorite altcoins. Whatever you think is gonna outperform or whatever goals you want to reach. This is the point. This is that. This was that. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So the thing is, it was always very clear to me like what was going to happen, and I was like, all right, wait a minute. If there's a 50 basis point cut, which I was 100% dead set on, I was like, all right, there's got to be, and you can ask people in the community this. I was talking about this in a lot of private chats. I was like, yeah, there's going to be a 50 basis point cut. That day we launch, right? At the exact, like within hours of that announcement, we're going to launch the token. People were like, you're out of your fucking mind. Like, what if it's not a 50 basis point cut? What if people react poorly to the news? Blah, 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 all this stuff. But like, yeah, it was a very ballsy move, no doubt. But the thing is, like, I mean, being crypto and AI, I mean, you got to be ballsy, right? I mean, like, this is not fixed income. So like long story short, yeah, I think long story short, I think the project's got a lot of prospects that I'm really excited about. And yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And I think what's really impressive is, I mean, if we zoom out, you guys are still a pretty much a low market cap coin right now. I mean, it's not even, this is not even like it's just like scratching the surface, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so for people that, like I keep telling people, I gave you guys, so and so many coins. Those things did so many X's. And I keep telling them buy more for it. It's not because I know you. It's got nothing to do with that, man. It's like because I actually believe in what you've built. And I'm like, if there was one coin that I would recommend, again, not financial advice, quick disclaimer as always, but if there was one coin that I could recommend that would be like a top performer for this upcoming bull run, Morphware is the one, man, for sure. Because everything
Appreciate
is in
it.
place. Everything is in place, all the parts, everything that you guys have been working there, it's like in an organized place. And you guys have been given updates on Discord. You guys have been active on Telegram. You've got your social media strategy ready. You guys have been building, and the one thing that I noticed a lot of other projects that they make mistakes on is that they, even when they're building, they go silent. So for the average Joe, that's like, the guy disappeared or the team disappeared. And then the fear sets in and like, what's gonna happen to my I mean, I'm just kidding, but what's going to happen to my $20 that I invested? So, they removed that $20 or, I mean, of course I'm kidding. I mean, some, people put a lot of money, some people put thousands, some people put 2,000, whatever, but they're like worried about that. But the truth is with crypto and, like you said, it's all about, it's all about being ballsy and having guts. The reality is that, if you don't have that edge of, you don't have that in you, don't get into this market. But right
Mm-hmm.
now, I mean, for the retail especially, there's no better time than now because no matter what, these market manipulators, they need to make money as well. So they're going to pump the markets, whether anybody likes it or not. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can ride on that, that's great. But with Morphware, I also feel that not only is it going to perform well in this bull run, you guys are going to be like just like the way I see Morphware, I see like all these big, like I would consider some of these alts like blue chips, like Chainlink and stuff. So I see you guys, with a multi-billion-dollar market cap eventually, and probably even a $1 billion plus market cap in this bull run. I mean, I'm not I don't have a crystal ball, but that's where I see things going for you guys.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's funny. Back in 2015, when I got into crypto with my buddy, dear friend of mine, we we were both working in Manhattan, and there was this guy that came into my office, and he was like, um, this might be 2016, but he was like, yeah, I was working in this office, and I was kind of helping run the place, and he was like, he said, hey, dude, can I run my meetup here? He's came to the office. He said, hey, can I run my meetup here? It's a really nice office. Right? We had the 35th floor of the, I forget what the building was called, but it was 295 Madison. Very beautiful building. It's 41st and Madison Avenue. It's between, 41st and Madison Avenue. Right. A block from Grand Central, a block from the library, the Steve Schwarzman library. It was very, 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 very beautiful. And he said, hey, can I run my meetup here? And I said, well, because we would just like incubate the tech community and kind of help people kind of like, it was just like, I think it was just like the right thing to do basically for the tech community. We would host a lot of meetups. This was a way for us to get in touch with people, a way for us to promote what we were doing. But basically, I was like, yeah, can you tell me more about what the meetup would be about? And he said, well, I work for a company called Consensys, and we're working on this thing called Ethereum, and I'm in charge of growing this thing called MetaMask, and that's like a wallet. And I was like, huh? I was like, a wallet, and I was like, I heard of Ethereum. I was like, I heard of Ethereum somewhere, right? And people were starting to kind of whisper about New York. Even like this girl I knew, she was like, oh yeah, my friend's working on this thing in Brooklyn called Ethereum, right? And I was like, and at the time, the consensus was like run out of all these apartments in this place called the Fuchs Building. I was actually just writing about this. The Fuchs Building was like this big, cool building, actually, but it was kind of old and kind of, it wasn't run down. It was kind of like one of these places in Brooklyn where there's like lofts and stuff, but there were these giant internet and power cables going from apartment to apartment because they had like rented out floors. It was like nuts. And you could just see them like literally building the internet in front of you, like the next version of the internet in live action. And I mean, in front of you. And over the years, I stayed in touch with this guy. And this guy's Anthony. This guy's like one of the core contributors to Morphware. And I saw him grow MetaMask to what it is, from like 33,000 to like 33 million users. It's like, I mean, just like incredible growth. And then he did the same with Infura, right? Which is Infura is like the compute end. He did the same, and then became director of community and developer relations at Consensys. And then he moved on to ZK Sync, and he did the same thing. Oh, ZK Sync is something I think is very cool as well, by the way, just so everyone knows. ZK Sync is awesome. I used it way back in the day because Anthony was like, hey, dude, I'm working on ZK Sync now. And I'm like, shit, that guy's working on ZK Sync. I'm gonna start using it, right? So Anthony's mandate for us, we can't talk about like what we think the price of Morphware is going to be tomorrow and all this different stuff. But Anthony's mandate, his only mandate, when he's starting on Tuesday, his only mandate is basically, and by starting, I mean basically rolling out this plan publicly. We've been working on this for years. His mandate is to make Morphware $1 billion market cap. That's his only job. His title is Director of Growth. Adrian, from the guy from CoinDesk, who's super awesome. He produced Markets Daily over there. He's the Director of Marketing. And then we've got this other girl who's basically, she was the head of communications for the technology ministry here, for institutional communications, but also and then after that, she was the head of communications for the largest Bitcoin miner here, basically a 100 megawatt facility called Penguin. And with these folks, right, so Chiara's kind of in charge of institutional type communications, government relations, or what's called stakeholder management. Adrian is in charge of marketing and PR, basically making sure we get to the right outlets with the right information at the right time. And Anthony's goal is to grow the community and awareness about the project and to drive real usage on morphware.com, especially the reason we're starting in a week is because we don't have the computer equipment yet to handle real usage, to handle real load. Right now, we can like max handle 50 to 100 users, depending on how much they're using the platform at the same time. Once we get the computer equipment, that's why we're starting on like October 1st. We're like, all right, October 1st, we're going to have some computer equipment really coming in by this point. We just spent like $200,000 on equipment or something in the past week, which is like a lot of money, at least for me. And we're going to be spending a lot more. But the point is, Anthony's mandate is to build this project. That's his entire job now. He did it at MetaMask. He grew Infura to what it is. Infura is basically, for anyone that doesn't know, it's the back end of Ethereum. It's literally the compute infrastructure of Ethereum. And then basically he did it at ZK Sync, and everyone knows what ZK Sync is, and they know what ZK Sync is because of Anthony, right? So our goal is to leverage his infinite intellectual depth to basically grow this project. And here's what's really cool is Anthony, it's very formulaic. Obviously it's more art than science when it comes to growth, but the thing is Anthony's a real artist and he's got the formula down. There is at least a set of processes and a method basically to how you go ahead and grow a project to live up to its potential, right? And we're very deliberate about that. Anthony's intimately familiar with the details of the project. He was the first person I went to when I started the project. I said, Anthony, I want you to come on board. I'm starting this thing called Morphware. I'm writing the white paper right now. I'm writing the code. This is May 2021. God. Anyway, I was like, dude, I'm working on this. That's like over 3 years ago now. Anyway, I was like, dude, yeah, it was like yesterday. I can still remember. I was like, dude, I'm starting to say that. He's like, I'm in, right? He's like, let's do this. So yeah, now he's, we're gonna roll this thing out next week. This because we're gonna have the computers for it. And yeah, I'm personally very excited to see what he does because I've seen him hit. It's like seeing a guy. It's like Barry Bonds. Have you ever watched Barry Bonds play baseball? I'm sure like maybe this.
I've heard the name. I don't follow baseball much, man, but yeah.
When I was a kid, my grandparents on my dad's side are from California. They're from around the Silicon Valley area. There's a place called Santa Cruz, which is kind of like near there. Anyway, Barry Bonds was this guy he would hit these home runs. I mean, he was on steroids, but the point is like, or I don't know. The point is, when I was a kid, you'd go to this place called Candlestick Park, and you'd watch. And when I was in California, you go to this baseball park and you watch this guy just hit the ball over the fence, right into the water, right into the San Francisco Bay. I mean, like it was just, and he just do it all the time. He would just whoosh, right, and just, I mean, and that's Anthony when it comes to growth. I mean, this guy's just hitting home runs, and you're just like, what is going on? Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's the perfect analogy, but when I think of Anthony, I think of Barry Bonds. I'm like, that guy can get the ball over the fence, and he can put points on the board, real points. And what's cool, I think, about what we're doing now is what's cool about what we're doing now is that the LP, I think we've got like $700,000 in the LP now. Maybe it's a little bit higher. But the point is, and the market cap might be around like 6 million or 7 million. I'm not sure. It changes obviously, but the point is that that's a pretty healthy balance. I think basically a 10-to-1 ratio. That's what one of our advisors was telling us. It's like, how much liquidity do we even need? And they were like, well, ideally you have a 10-to-1 ratio between market cap and your liquidity pool, right? Which is 100% locked for everyone watching. So the general idea there is we want to basically grow at a sustainable rate so that market cap doesn't spike up and get out of sync with the liquidity pool while we're building these taxes. Because when that happens, it's harder and more distracting for communications and marketing professionals and our growth team to go ahead and basically have to go ahead and address all this FUD, right? Because if the price goes right, then it's like we take all this stuff, like let's say right now everyone's focused on the videos. We've got like a bunch of videos we're producing. It's like, oh, we got to go ahead and do all this, like, for lack of a better phrase, like community handholding. Like people are like, wait, price down, like, right? And it's like, nah, dude, price, like since the beginning, price way up. Like, you know what I mean? Basically, so there's a lot of that. And FUD can get out of control with the project, right? So, I mean, you really need to stay on top of basically the narrative. I mean, it's weird. It's weird being a project where, I mean, I've seen like all sorts of conspiracy theories. It's really funny. I even saw a conspiracy theory on Twitter. No, maybe it was in the Telegram where someone was like, Kenzo's not Japanese. And I was like, all right. That's kind of like, I was kind of like, all right, well, I was like, well, all right. It's like that SpongeBob meme where he's like, all right, I'm gonna leave. Or he's like, I'm gonna check out. It's like I was like, I gotta close Telegram for now. Just like I was like, all right, this is out of control. So yeah, I think basically when it comes to all that stuff, long story short, we want to keep growing at a sustainable rate. I think things are looking pretty good from a project financing perspective. We're spending a lot of money on equipment, and the rest of the money we're spending on basically paying individual contributors. We haven't really paid any marketing folks for I'm talking about like KOLs and all that stuff. These are guys that are actually buying in, as far as I can tell, and what they're telling me. And I'm in chats with many of them who want to know a lot more about the project. So it's all very interesting stuff. And yeah, I'm excited to see where the project goes.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I wish you nothing but the very best. And I'm so happy for all of you. And you guys have been building for a long time. Guys, I hope this was knowledge. Kenzo is amazing. He's got a lot of knowledge. And I hope you guys learned something. And look into Morphware, guys. You're not going to regret it. And wishing you the very best, my friend. Thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge and for everything for all your insight, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, dude. Great to see you again. And yeah, let's do a follow-up video sometime.
Absolutely,
Whenever.
absolutely. Looking forward to it. This is me, the DeFi enthusiast, and Kenzo Trading from Morphware signing out. Bye.
You guys, bye.